finished.
You're massive.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Boleyn Lounge Tuesday talk show. And we've got a little bit to talk about tonight. I'm sure we're going to be miserable as ever after that result. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Thanks to my panel, Budgie and Mick. Welcome to the show, guys. How are you two?
Evening, Jeff. Evening, Budgie. Yeah,
Evening.
sounds.
Yeah, all good, mate. All good.
Cool. So we better talk about that debacle on Saturday. I'll give them a little brief synopsis, and you guys can add anything you like to it afterwards. But pretty uneventful first half from a West Ham perspective. Created a chance in the first 5 minutes. After that, I believe the stats say we had another shot on target, but I really can't remember it offhand, if I'm honest. Southampton didn't offer much, but managed to open us up a couple of times, create good chances. Walker-Peters probably should have scored. And Soleimani, or whatever his name is, whose effort came off the bar, was probably a little bit unlucky. Could have perhaps gone in 2-0 down. Second half came out, looked a little bit more lively, scored early goal. Kind of looked like we might go on without really, really threatening. We had control of the game. Only looked like one team in it, and had a second goal disallowed. I think it's probably just about a foul, really. Ramsdale does flap at it, but Fulcrook's got his arm on the boy's shoulder, so it's always going to be a foul. And then we just kind of let Southampton come on to us. Potter ends up changing it to a 5 at the back. I'm sure we'll go on to talk about all the substitutions in due course, what we thought of them. And we invited them on. We gave them encouragement. They took it, and again, they scored their goal. Chance before that, Diblin. I mean, I remember you saying last week you thought Saleh's chance last week was a gilt-edged chance. Well, my God, Diblin's was almost a tap-in. If Saleh's was a gilt-edged chance, he really should have hit the target there. And they get their goal thereafter, and you couldn't say it wasn't deserved. And if they beat us, I don't think we could have any arguments. I don't know which of you guys want to fire in there and give any of your thoughts. Anything you want to add to that?
Go on, look. Mick looks like he's ready to go. Go on, Mick.
Me. Listen, I'll sum it up very, very simply. I agree with Mr. Fulcrook. We were shit. Yeah, and that's the top and bottom of it. Everything he said about going and win it, mental attitude, all the things that he said in his interview, I read it and thought that sums it up. I mean, we should have lost the game. They had the better chances. As you said, Jeff. Yeah, and losing, well, we were lucky to get away with a draw, in my opinion. Yeah. But Fulcrook summed it up perfectly for me. It's a problem now. It's a massive problem now. I am and have sat here, and I'm probably going to have to eat my words, but unimpressed by that. If that's how Potter's going to carry on, then we have a serious problem. But anyway, that's another story.
I'm sure we'll come on to talk about Potter later in the show. We'll see where the chat directs us, but I'm sure Fulkrug's going to be part of the topic, and I'm sure Potter is going to be. So, what were your thoughts on the game? Anything to add to any of that, Budgie?
Well, not really. I mean, I think you two guys have summed it up pretty well. The only other thing I might add is that from a neutral perspective, it's kind of like it's an embarrassing situation for West Ham to be in. Yeah, and like I've had lots of my mates who are supporters of other clubs asking me what the hell's going on at the club, this and that, and people are telling me that Potter isn't the problem and this and that. I don't know. I don't know where the problems are and what the solutions are, but they're not even acknowledging that there are problems in the club, and they got to change that pretty soon before they can heal it.
Well, he has to be the problem. When Jeff said in his analysis or his sum up, went to a 5 at the back. What's going on against Southampton at home?
This is the team that prior to Saturday had retrieved 1 point from a losing position all season.
Jeff, they've only had 10 points all season.
Right. And they weren't really, they had no encouragement in the game. As much as we weren't putting them to bed, it didn't look like they were going to do very much. They looked kind of beaten until we egged them on. They gave them some encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
They could have easily been 2-0 up at half time. Couldn't have argued if they were. They weren't, but maybe that's a bit of their story. Like, they're not scoring goals, much like we're not. We get a goal. I think we looked like we could have gone on and got a second from there without really carving them open that much. But it didn't really look a threat until we let them into the game. And then we end up going to 5 at the back, trying to protect the lead at home against like the worst team in the Premier League.
Probably one of the worst teams in Premier League history. Yeah.
Yeah, true. But they were the first team to get a shot. Okay, not quite on target. It hit the bar, didn't it? They were the first team to get a shot on target, though.
Yeah, they had two great chances in the first half to go 2-0 up. That's been said a couple of times already. And then they wasted chances in the second. We could have come away with 4 or 5 against us there.
I'm not sure we could say Southampton deserved to beat us by 4 or 5, but they created
enough chances to
really good chances that they could have easily scored from. So,
and we didn't really have much of an answer.
Before we go too much further, I'm going to say good evening to the guys in the chat.
Yeah, let's have a listen to the chat. Let's see what they got to say.
Usual's in. He says, "Good evening, ladies."
Good evening, Usual.
Usual, good evening, mate. Tohir's here, and he says, "Ha! I knew Usual would be in the chat already." Evening, Jeff, Budgie. Please, no whinge fest. I am fatigued by it by now. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think there's going to be a bit of whinging, Tohir, but hopefully we're going to bring a little bit of optimism to the conversation as well. But let's see how that goes. Let's see where the chat takes us. Leslie's in. He says, good evening to Usual and Brendan, Tohir, and us, of course. Goes on to say 4 or 5 players with pace and passion can make such a difference to the style of play. I kind of agree with that. I've been thinking about we've got a rebuild and what the summer might bring, and we're getting closer to that. So I did some work on a little slide earlier. I don't know if we'll get to use it this evening. I might put some more thought into it over the next week or two, see how the show goes. But we might touch on what Leslie's talking about there. Guys are just saying good evening to each other there. I haven't zoomed the screen out, written out for us.
It says, Targ, I gave all 3 a good listen. The one I liked was Est Talk Deep, or East Street, is that Talk Deep?
East Talk Deep, I think that's meant to be.
Oh, is it? East, yeah. Right.
I'll just try and catch up. Make sure I acknowledge everyone who's in the
Yes, right.
chat, and then we'll crack on.
That's just in answer to that. Yeah.
Let me just.
So, what was the good vibes then that was coming? I'd like to know what they were. What was said?
Yeah.
I don't know. Usual
Music.
says vibes is a backdrop of a giant puppet head. Yeah, there must be. Collins in says good evening. So,
Good evening.
and Terence is in. Good evening, Terence.
Evening,
And I was hoping we were going to bring some sense into the conversation, but Terence has arrived. No chance of that. Come on, what's he saying?
He says, I don't think we turned up against Southampton. We keep saying that it's not Potter's team, but let's be honest. We look like a Sunday League team. Yes. I think Saturday, Potter's, I think he made a big fuck up Saturday. They were that Southampton are a team, they're the worst team in the league. And
It's almost like
we're at home. There's a chance to like go at them. They've got not much confidence, and we just never really do that. And then to revert to the five at the back and hanging on at the end, it's no wonder he got the reception at the end. It's so frustrating.
Fulcroft again summed it up in his summary of the game. He said it's down to the players too. It's down to he said it's down to the players as well, and it is down to the players. It's got to be down to the players. You're on the pitch, you're professional footballers. You know who you're playing against. Even if he goes to five at the back, means the wing backs get forwards, get crosses in, make chances. Yeah, you can blame Potter to a big degree, but
I've put Word's comment up here because it's made me chuckle. He says, we tried to lose but didn't quite manage it. That just about sums Saturday's performance up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We did our best and couldn't quite throw it away. Anyway, getting on to perhaps another thing that we might want to talk about is, you touched on it, Fulcrook. And I think the fans have been widely supportive. It's been interpreted in lots of different ways, Fulcrook's comments for me. From he wants to stay at the club to he wants to leave the club to he supports Potter to he's undermining Potter. And I think probably you can read into it what you will in whatever way you want. I think he was just being brutally honest. I think he's called his teammates out.
He did, yeah.
A little bit. And it'd be interesting to see what the reaction is to that in the team in training this week and next weekend. But what's your thoughts on it, guys? And in the chat, please give us your views as well, whether you agree or disagree with Fulcrook.
I know probably half a dozen.
Mama, thanks for joining us.
German people, and evening, Mama. I know about half a dozen German people, and they're all like that. They're all brutally honest. None of them sugarcoat anything. And if Potter had done his homework on Germans, he would find that it's probably a high percentage of the population, you know, and because they're brutally honest. They don't sugarcoat anything. And I thought he was, he was right in what he said. I think he was probably, could have been a little bit more tactful, probably because of his own position. But the club have come out and said, look, there's going to be no backlash from it, apparently. So that's good. It's a talking point for guys like us, which is great because it's not just what happens on the field we're talking about. It's what happens post-match as well. So, we're getting an idea now of what maybe the changing room might be like after the game now. There's going to be a lot of, fuck thrown into a few people, I would have thought.
If that was Roy Keane or John Terry or Patrick Vieira back in their day, that's people say, yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that is what it's all about. At the end of the day, Potter can pick what team he likes, but he's put 11 professional footballers on the pitch to play in a West Ham shirt. Yeah, and Paul Crook rightly said, you're a bunch of shit. You've got no brains of your fucking own to get forward. Yeah, the game was there to be won and we didn't want to win it. And that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And he's right.
He actually hinted that the players weren't working to Potter's, instructions as well.
Yeah, it kind of leads me nicely into Phil's point here, actually, Budgie, that I want to put up. He says, at no point was the interview undermining Potter. He said certain players were not following the manager's instructions, just as you're saying.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. But when I said it's been interpreted that, I've seen comments made saying he's undermining Potter. Oh, he rode back and said, and supported the manager. He stopped himself. And I don't read into that at all in any way. I agree with Phil's sentiment. I don't think he was undermining Potter anyway, but I've seen some interpret it that way, which, you know.
He was calling the players out for me.
For me too.
For me too. And, you know, I mean, it was almost Roy Keane-like. And I said this on Sunday when I was on with Tony. You know, I said the last person that I remember saying something of that nature was Roy Keane when he, I think they were trying to get a certain amount of points to get the league done and dusted by a certain week. They didn't do it. They got beat by somebody. I can't remember who it was. And Roy Keane came out and said, no, we were crap. We didn't play well at all. We were absolutely crap, a lot of us. You know, and he did the same thing, Paul Krug. And you can't blame the man for that. You've got to admire that in him. You know, I mean, listen, for me, that tells me three things about that guy. One, yes, he wasn't happy with the performance of the players around him. Two, he cares about this club and he cares about, what happens in the game. And three, he should have been got fit a lot sooner, because with him in our squad, in our team, I don't think we would be in the position we're in now. If we were feeding him the way he likes to be fed and the way he likes to play.
I don't disagree. We might have been more potent, but we haven't had him at our disposal, and that is what it is. It's been available when it's been available.
Absolutely,
because we can speculate about that. But I don't disagree. I do think we would. I see. He offers so much more. You wish Antonio had what he had. See, when he had that close control and he holds it up and he lays the ball off and he brings other players in, you just think, God, like that's what Antonio is missing, right? And he's got that.
He's got a bit of clumsiness, hasn't he, Antonio?
He hasn't got that, no, but. Anyway, talking about, rewinding a little bit when one of the other things I wanted to talk about was the substitutions and talking about 11 professionals. And one thing I wanted to touch upon was the Ferguson thing. I found that really, really strange. He's wanted to bring Ferguson on and he's gone dashing off down the tunnel. Speculation about whether he had the wrong boots. I don't know. Maybe he's gone for a piss. I kind of don't really care what it is. I think that's absolutely outrageous that he's not ready to come on the pitch when he's called upon. I don't know what you think about him, Mick, but I think about when I was playing for you, if you called upon me or anyone else to come off the bench, right, because I've just got to pop to the changing room, right, I think you would have done exactly what Potter did at that time, by the way, which was put another player on. But I don't think the player that went for a piss or his boots or whatever gets on that fucking pitch afterwards, right?
You're not under me, wouldn't Jeff? You know.
No. So I think there's absolutely no excuse for rushing off to the dressing room. I kind of don't really care what it's for. He was going to come on for full.
I've got a theory on this.
Yeah, go on. I'd love to hear it because if there's a rational explanation, I'll row back a bit.
I mean, I'm not saying my theory is rational. But it is definitely something any footballer could be capable of, and that is maybe I've been ready for fucking weeks, right? And you ain't called on me, right? So now that you are going to call on me, I'm going to make you wait. It could be a little bit of that going on. I don't know. I'm speculating completely.
Okay, but that makes it worse because I still,
It
I
does.
wouldn't have brought you on if you went for a piss, and if I thought you were making me wait, you fucking definitely wouldn't have come on.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. So that, you know, I mean, I'm not suggesting that that is the reason. I'm suggesting that that could be a part of it. You know what I mean? It could be like, you know.
Maybe I'm going off on the deep end about this a little bit.
No, I agree with you.
I just think it's like I think it's really, really poor. A professional footballer is not ready to come on the pitch when he's asked to come on the pitch. He's got like something don't sit right with me with that. Anyway, what's your thoughts?
Well, on that, I read. I'm trying to think who I was reading. One of the columns in the paper there Saturday. It was our ex-Irish international. I can't remember his name now. Very good player. And his name escapes me. And he says that he's suffering from bad mentality, not in the way that we're talking now, but in terms of his injury. And that's why he's not playing him, because in training, he's pulling out of stuff. He's seen him playing, and he said even for Ireland, he said he was pulling out of stuff he shouldn't be pulling out, that the injury was so severe, and he's scared of doing it again.
So he's like psychologically scarred.
Psychologically scarred, yeah, at the moment. He said he's a young man. Like the player I'm talking about, I wish I could bloody remember, had a very similar thing. He said, but I was a bit older than him, so I'd had like a number of seasons before it happened.
Not Cascarino, is it?
Was it Cascarino? I can't remember.
I don't know, but I remember him having to retire because of an injury he'd got a couple of years previous.
Yeah, no, he played on, this fella, and had a good career, but he said it took him. He said it took him nearly 2 seasons to put it to the back of his mind that it won't happen again. So, you know, bearing in mind he's still a young man. Yeah, maybe that is in his mind that if it happens again, his career's over. And apparently, I don't know, because it's only what I read. He's not putting it in training. That's why he's not being picked. He's pulling out challenges in training. He's not being picked. So,
but we've been questioning why he hasn't played. He hasn't had another striker at his disposal. We're saying he's coming back from injury. He's not 100% fit, etc., etc. But he clearly doesn't fancy him, right? And there's a reason for it. And there's a reason for he's not playing. And then, you know, these are the sort of explanations why he's probably not playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because apparently also in that article they were saying that because he played for Ireland, didn't he, and scored.
Yeah, 70-odd minutes, I think. Yeah. 75 minutes, maybe.
And apparently, even at the training camp that the Irish team were together, he was also like wary of, you know, a heavy challenge, or, you know, because these professionals, when they play a game, they training or not, but, you know.
And I would imagine the national team are less likely to worry about whether he gets injured during the game or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's the explanation I read about why he's not playing.
Anyway, moving on from Ferguson, what did you think of the rest of the substitutions and the subsequent change of shape that it brought? And ultimately, I think we brought that result upon ourselves. And as much as we've spoke about Fulkrug's comments and about his teammates, some of them not wanting to get forwards and others wanting to, it was Potter's tactical decisions that made us.
He made them changes. He made them changes.
So I think it was a royal fuck up. Personally, I think it was a mistake, but it's proved to be. But do you think he's justified in doing what he was doing, trying to protect that goal lead? I'm misreading it, or do you think he should have just kept going what we were going? If he change personnel, but try and score a second goal.
When you suddenly go 3 at the back, that's okay. 3 at the back's not it ended up being a 5, which quite often it does. But if you're playing with a 3 at the back, which is, It's miss means your fullback should be pushing on. So that didn't happen. And, they're saying he didn't follow his plans or whatever. I don't know. But, you're not talking playing Liverpool or City or Arsenal where you put the back five in and you're hanging on.
Yeah.
You're just putting on different personnels to play still attacking football, which we weren't doing anyway, but that would be the idea. So, I love a free hit.
But we were in relative control of the game, really.
Yeah, but
without being especially dangerous.
We didn't create enough chances.
No, we didn't.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with it, it's very hard to talk about the Sunday because I think it's as low as we've been all season, to be honest.
Yeah. And then I'll just try and catch up with the chat again because
cool.
I just wanted to make sure I got.
It's a shame that Aaron Wan-Bissaka was such a big miss, though.
Yeah, he was a big miss. I agree.
And it's a shame that we're having to say that, because the player behind him should be equally as useful. And Southampton definitely wasn't.
No.
Southampton was definitely at fault for some of the, mess ups that were happening down that side.
I don't know. If you want to pick out individual errors and point finger at him for this or that, okay. I'm not going to offer a defence. I think you could do that to any number of players.
What was a game of mistakes? It's the least you make that makes a difference.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a poor team display. Mm-hmm. And he was just another culprit.
If you go back to the Liverpool game where Van Dijk fucks up, 2 minutes later he's up the other end putting the ball in the back of the net. That's the difference. You didn't see like his willingness to win that game. Like, I fucked up. He got up there.
Didn't see any willingness from any one of the players. Really.
If you look at that display, that second half display at Anfield, despite losing the game, there was quite a lot to be encouraged about on a number of levels.
There was a lot to be.
But we brought absolutely none of that into the Southampton game.
And we're at home in front of the fans.
It's so disappointing. Anyway, I do want to make sure I make West Ham great again. Point in. Thanks for joining us, buddy. He said, let's not forget it's Lopetegui's points that has meant we haven't been relegated. And
that's
true,
probably
right?
true, but that
collectively together they've got there. But without his points,
here's the thing.
Yeah, that could have been any.
I don't think Lopetegui would have got us relegated. Potters are not going to get us relegated. I thought when we played under Lopetegui, it was pretty chaotic quite a lot of the time. I think, despite the lack of goals and the lack of points, I do think it's more organised and better under Potter.
It's defensively,
yeah. Now, would Lopetegui picked up more points or as many points as Potter in these last few games? I don't debate it. Arguably, he might have picked more or the same. I think we would have took a couple of hidings along the way, though, if I'm honest.
Well, possibly, yeah. And to be fair, would the player performances have been as energetic as they have been at times with Potter? Because let's be honest, the players were getting a bit fed up with Lopetegui as well.
Well, we get back into that dressing room thing, don't we? And with the comments of Fulkrug, and we had times under Moyes where we speculated as he lost the dressing room, and now you start to say, okay, are there disruptive elements in the dressing room? Was it as far back as then and influencing things then? Did it continue under Lopetegui? Did it start under Lopetegui? Has it continued under Potter? But there's problems with people's attitudes, because at the end of the day, if you don't follow out the instructions of what you're being asked to do on the field, it's a problem with your attitude, isn't it? We have said sometimes players look a bit lazy, look like they're not applying themselves properly, and then you hear comments like that from Fulkrug and you think, oh, well, maybe it's true, right? It's a real problem, though. So Potter's got a real big job on that. He's got to change the attitude somewhat to the degree that the Czech boys did when they arrived, when we had that kind of lethargic way about us, and all of a sudden they came in and doing extra training and running themselves ragged on the pitch.
Yeah.
We need that kind of step change in attitude amongst our dressing room. So it's a big job for Potter. Big job, I think. If he's fighting, swimming against a bit of tide there, you'll see. I don't know what you guys think.
Jeff, it's so hard for us to sit here and kind of speculate on. For me, you have to have leaders in the changing room. We lost our biggest leader for a long time, which is Mark Noble. Let's go back a little bit. Yeah, I don't think we've had that leader on the pitch. We don't have that leader in the changing room, clearly. Yeah. When do you remember Noble spoke up when we sold the boy to West Brom?
Diangana.
Grady Diangana, yeah.
Right. Okay. He's not set the world alight, but
he might have done, yeah.
He's done all right, but he's in the Championship, so no one's picked him up and brought him back to the Premier League. You need leaders, and you don't see it. Kilman disappoints me. I said he should have been made captain. He come from Wolves as a captain. I see him poorly look after Skulls against Liverpool, which was a massive surprise. He wasn't on the cover there when the few times that, and he didn't get past Skulls that many times, not into big positions. I think Skulls had done very well against him, but there was no protection of that young lad from a very experienced centre half that some West Ham fans.
Why I thought Cresswell should have played.
Yeah, well, that's what we said, didn't we, before the game was played? That's correct.
We did.
There's a lack of there's a whole lack of leadership and a whole lack of, as Fulcrack said, winning mentality. It's not there. And as a coach, you can sort of, to a degree, instill that, but then you have to make the right decisions in the games as well, like how you start the game, not how you finish it. But it's been said on here many times that we seem to set up to assess what the team's going to be like. Well, there's absolutely, they have videos, they have pre-match. The football today is so much more different than it was even under the likes of Alex Ferguson. They didn't really have the technology that these guys use now to pinpoint certain things. They don't have all the extra coaches that Fergie didn't. He had Mike Phelan. That was it. They got a coach for everything now. Even how to lace up your boots, they've got a coach for. It's fucking crackers that they don't know the opposition inside out before they play them. So this whole idea was sit back and have a look. Yes, you sit back against Liverpool. Yes, you sit back against Arsenal. When you're away, Man City, home and away, you sit back, and the other two teams, to be fair. But then you've got a plan. But there was no plan against Southampton. You just go out and beat them. That's it.
Yeah.
Southampton, 10 fucking points, the worst team in the Premier League history.
Yeah, I agree.
Bollocks.
Yeah.
Mate, West Ham are great again. He's talking about Fulcrack here. Obviously, we asked for the comments on it. So he says they can slag each other off in the changing room, but there should be united front in public. I like what he said, but it should have been said in the changing room. And he goes on to say, I do think Fulcrack has a cheek, considering he has been injured all season. What do you think about that? Do you think Make West Ham Great Again's got a point there with that? Or do you think Fulcrack's fully entitled to speak
I
out?
think there is something to be said for what Make West Ham Great said, Yeah, I agree that certain things should be said in the changing rooms and stuff. And maybe Fulcrack was a little forward with what he said, but I don't think he's got a cheek saying it because he's part of that squad. He's been a part of that squad all season. And he's, like I said, he's been on the sidelines watching, or he's been, and he's been training with the boys day in, day out. No, so I think he's got every right to do what he did. Maybe he shouldn't have said we're shit, because that's obviously upset a few people. But we are shit, and it's refreshing for me to hear it coming directly from the horse's mouth.
Yeah,
I think. Go on,
He
Vic,
didn't
sorry.
exclude himself from what he said. He said we're shit, not their shit, we're shit. So he didn't discount himself in that critique.
Well, I'd rather hear that than someone come out and say, "Well, we played better," blah. Have the pre-written statement, if you like. Yeah, he was right, and at the end of the day, he was talking about Saturday. So no matter how many games that he missed this season, he was solely talking about Saturday. Yeah, so and he played in that game. So no, I don't think he's got a cheek, as you say.
Yeah, no, I think he's got every right.
I agree with that as well, Mick. He's I think it's refreshing than the stock media trade answer that we all get tired of hearing, that gets churned out week after week. I think he was quite candid. It's a little bit outrageous what he said, I suppose, but I kind of think that's quite nice too. I think he's got every right to critique that game and the game that he played in. Yeah, I agree. And Phil says Sky Sports done an interview. Was Fulkrug right? What he done? 81% said yes. That's all fans' views. So obviously the wider fan base probably thought much as we're saying it's quite refreshing to hear a non-stock answer. Don't know how well it goes down with his teammates and the football club, but as a fan base, I think we fully embrace that, don't we?
I've got a funny feeling he was shouting it at them when they were playing anyway. So, it's not going to be news to them that he thought they were shit. I really, I mean, that was not a reactional answer.
No.
To be fair, that was well thought out. Do you know what I mean? Because he's obviously been ranting on the pitch and down the tunnel.
Well, if you take Thomas Frank when they went through a bad run here, and when he's been interviewed, which is usually straight after a game when he's probably angry, he says we weren't good enough here. We did this wrong, we did that wrong. Whereas Potter came on and said, well, as a collective, we've just got to get better together as a collective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where Thomas Frank goes, made mistakes there, we made mistakes there, we let them in here. Yeah. And
sorry, what nationality is he again? Oh, yeah, German.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, no nonsense, mate.
He doesn't give stock answers. I thought Potter's interview afterwards was awful. I think, you've nowhere to hide with that, son. So be honest. As a group, that was his comment. We have to look at it and see. What? Should have looked at it before the game.
Tony's thoughts on it. He said he thinks it was a rant that he wanted to get off his chest. He agrees that it should be kept in house, but it's about time we had a player speaking out.
Yeah.
And usual's such comment made me smile. He says, Budgie, the Nuremberg kid, an absolute authority on all things German.
I have actually been there a few times, so I'm not an authority though.
Can you read Joe's comment? There's too much text there for me with these glasses. I don't
understand the row back a bit analogy,
yeah.
As you always row backwards. I did in a pair 4 quad and 8 anyway. I'm not quite sure what is going on there.
Well, I mean, I think he's sort of referring to the
What, dropping
Back
off deep and
five.
having back five, right? Okay.
Back five, blocking up the defence and then allowing a goal. I think that's what he's referring to. Could be wrong.
Usual says Fulkrug was only following orders like most Germans do.
Oh dear. Have we got any?
Go on, mate. What are you saying?
No, just reading this one. Potter's tactics against Southampton show a lack of trust and confidence in the players' performance. Falkirk, Ferguson show a lack of commitment to Potter. Well, I think we touched on Ferguson earlier on about his mental state with his injury, and yeah, Falkirk, I don't know if he's got a lack of commitment to Potter. He has been injured, and yeah, he's done reasonably well when he's been on the pitch, to be fair. So yeah, I can't agree with the Falkirk one, and Ferguson just not played to show any commitment. So yeah, I'm not sure I agree with that in full.
Just a little bit of breaking news: the under 18s have gone 2-1 up against Reading.
Oh, that's a final, isn't it?
It's a Premier League Cup game. I don't know if it's the final. Just 10 minutes to go, we're 2-1 up, and it was a Jala scored both of our goals. Carter Bowdry scored for Reading. So no, I don't know if it's the final or not. Hang on, wait a minute. Yes, it is the final. Yes, it is the final.
They'll all be in the first team next year when everyone else leaves. So there you go.
Yeah, you know.
Bring on some winners.
So now Ajala is 7 goals up in that competition. He's had 7 goals in that competition.
Ace says Potter has better team morale than Lopetegui did.
I'd say so.
He appears to, but Lopetegui seemed to really get under everyone's skin, didn't he?
He had this kind of do it my way, go away attitude sort of thing. That was
Tony thinks the players are already on the beach, knowing they're not going to be relegated. They're just doing enough, and he thinks he can see it in their attitude. And I think we're absolutely guilty of that back end of last season, and there may be some of that in some of the players.
Well, you remember I've said for a few weeks now, well, a couple of months probably, that we're not going to get relegated because the 3 teams below us are shit. Yeah, and he's got nothing to lose. Yeah, and that's the problem. He has nothing to lose, but he's got a lot to improve, and that's where the players should be showing him that they want to improve and they want to get better and they want to stay at West Ham next year. Yeah, they are on the beach, and some of them are thinking about going back to sunny climates and not staying in London. So that is also a problem.
Dara says, I was okay with Fulkrug saying the performance was shit. Did not hear an apology to the fans, though. Slagging the teammates off is poor. Okay, fair comment. And I do think it's interesting to see if it creates waves or not with his teammates after what his comments are. I'm interested to see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
Word says, I'm a hypocrite when it comes to Fulkrug. I think things should be said behind closed doors, but it was great to see his freedom and to hear his honesty. Really glad he said it. Yeah, and I think I kind of can associate with that a little bit. I'm quite pleased that he said it. I think it was really quite refreshing. But like I say, I do wonder if it'll cause some waves or not. And maybe it will in a good way, right? Maybe it'll give the tree a shake up. Maybe it needs it. Usual's just saying about the under 18s there.
It's different level, I know, but I've been in many a January. Well, we're still there, Jeff.
Says if you look back at the game, you could see Fulcrook's frustration when he was pressing and no other teammates were pressing with him. That's right. I noticed that a couple of times myself. He's looked around, waved his arms in a bit of frustration because one time specifically he was closing down on the left-hand side of their box and he looked behind him. He's waving, I think it was towards Bowen even, to get up the pitch and close the space down. And Tony says he agrees on that as well. Ian says good evening. It's a bit late to the party, but no worries, Ian. Thanks for joining us, mate. Welcome.
Evening, Ian. I've just found the link to the game, so I'm going to keep you updated on it.
I did say earlier on when Toa said that please not all doom and gloom.
Well, give us something exciting then, Jeff.
Some kind of optimism. Well, I'm just trying to look to the future. I know that Damien came on a few weeks ago now and said announced he was firmly Potter out. And well, since he's done that, the Potter out movement seems to have absolutely snowballed. I don't know if it's in direct correlation to Damien's statement or just the general feeling of the fan base, but I'd be interested to see what you guys think. I think the full-blown Potter out is a little bit over the top, a little bit knee-jerk. I can't believe we're really considering we're going to start changing managers every 10 games and think that's any kind of answer and building to the future. So my perspective on it is to try and bring a bit of optimism. I don't think it's been completely great undergoing Potter, but I think we've seen some glimpses where it can be better. We can see some glimpses. If you look at the Southampton game, I tell you what, it was dull as dishwater. It was tedious. But if you just speed that up a little bit and put a little bit more intent going forwards, a bit more commitment to it, then I tell you, I don't think it's quite as boring, and maybe you start creating a few more chances. And I do think, look at our midfield. That's a big handicap, right? It needs an overhaul. If we get a couple of the right midfielders in there, that can transform the way that we play. And a striker. We really need a striker. Bring a couple of youngsters in, get Freddie Potts involved next year, maybe Earthy or Marshall, one or the other, maybe both. Get him in the
maybe a Jara.
I don't know if that's a stretch too far or if it's a realistic proposition, but I'm just trying to, as Toa asked for, trying to put a bit more of a positive spin on what the future might hold with Potter. And I just think if we recognise that there might be some disruptive or unhelpful influences in the dressing room, if he has an opportunity to either nullify them or remove them, bring in some additions to improve in the areas we need it, try and keep a core of what we've got that's good, of what we've got, introduce a few youngsters to that. It might not be too dreadful. It might not be quite too as drastic as everyone's painting it out to be. Maybe I'm being a little bit over optimistic here, and you guys and people in the chat are going to bring me down to earth with a big thud. But do you think it's really as gloomy as some are liking to paint the picture, or is there room for optimism in this West Ham world we live in?
Well, it's the midfield, as you said. The back line, whether it's a 3 or 5 or 4, whatever, can't operate properly. It can't hold its positions. It can't be in positions it wants to be if people are walking through your midfield, which is quite often the case.
Yeah.
So it makes the back four look shit, right? Any team that goes down, people will always, look at that goal, look at that goal. Yeah. Well, if you're doing the work of 2 men or you're trying to cover a space or a position and you make that decision and you get it wrong, then as a defender you look poor. So if you look at the back line, Wan-Bissaka, Scholes, Tabino, Kilman would probably be the first pick. I think most people would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're under constant pressure for not because all football at this level is played like a little bit of chess. You've got to keep certain positions. You've got to be looking out for certain things. When the team you're playing against, someone like Isaac making a run, they got to cover that. But when he's making that run and 2 or 3 other players are coming through from midfield, it's very hard then to decide to go to the ball, to go with the runner. So the back 4 would improve immensely by having a decent midfield in front of it. Yeah.
And we'll just start, if we're talking about a rebuild, if we just start at the back 4, we say, okay, Scholes, Gilman, Tadibo, Wan-Bissaka, you've just named them. We've got Mavropanos, Agards to come back. Perhaps bring in Walker-Peters. Now, you've got cover across all of that back 4 now.
Yeah.
With whatever the signing on fee is for Walker-Peters if you retain all of those players.
Mm-hmm.
So now you can concentrate investing in the areas of the pitch that you really, really need to strengthen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is midfield, definitely.
It's central midfield, isn't it?
Yes, central midfield.
It's central midfield.
And we need a striker.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do need a striker. Have we got a striker? Is he going to be fit? Yeah, he's a German international with a great pedigree.
You can't just go into next season with Fulkrug.
No, but then have we got some youngsters coming through? I don't know if they're good enough.
I don't think you can go into next season with Fulkrug and one of our youngsters either. My opinion. Others might disagree.
I kind of get that, Jeff. But if you're, there's no point in having an academy if we're not going to use it.
No, but you can go into next season with Fulkrug, a senior striker, or what's considered as a senior first 11 striker, and one of your youngsters.
Go back 2 years when an 18-year-old came into the Premiership and let it alight. Who was that?
Sorry, say that again, mate.
Go back 2 years and an 18-year-old came into the Premiership and set it alight. Who was that? Ferguson. Yeah, so he's had that injury, but an 18-year-old who came in and they valued him at 100 million at one point. So there is a possibility of there might be a kid out there. I'm not qualified to say that because I've not seen these kids play, so I'm not going to say that. But there's a lot of talk about different youngsters. Sure, one of them has to come into that squad now, whether he's sits on the bench and gets 20 minutes, half hour, whatever. But there's an academy out there, we don't have the funds, so we're told, whether that's true or not, to have a massive, massive rebuild. It's got, it's the 2 central midfielders. I mean, Paqueta hasn't made 1 assist all season. Yeah, as much as everyone says what a great player he is, and yes, he has all the skills in the world. But
Kudus final product's just been completely lacking this year.
I blame him for the Liverpool defeat. I think that's fucking crazy what he's done, and he's done that before. So,
but I'm not trying to single him out. I'm just saying you're talking about Paqueta, and then we put Kudus in the mix, and then there's two creative players that are supposed to assist and make goals, be involved in goal involvements, and neither of them are delivering.
The problem with Kudus is, he's having to come too deep, defend too much. Yeah, there's a lot of things about balance in a team. Yeah, where if you get the midfield right, it's the same as the back 4. The midfield right, the forward players can also do their work. Yeah, it's a very different. The midfield for me is a massive problem at West Ham. Massive problem. Yeah, and it needs 2 quality footballers in there, real good quality footballers in there, and who will play to the top of the game most weeks.
We need another player in that midfield. Somebody like Declan Rice, we need that kind of player, because without that kind of player, that box-to-box midfielder, we're struggling. We're struggling big time.
But you also need someone who's going to shut it down like he did,
Yes, exactly. And stuff like, players like Gundogan and that, I know these are older players now, but I'm just saying they all do that same sort of job.
Yeah. When was that?
And that's the kind of, Caicedo now is starting to prove to be a decent signing by Chelsea.
Dare I
Two
say,
players,
a John
they cost
McGinn,
100 million
right?
each.
Like a John
John
McGinn
McGinn.
character. So just win the ball, carry the ball, drive you forward. We haven't got anyone who does that.
Yeah. Jeff Pike is what we need. Someone in there put his foot in.
No, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not suggesting we
Bruggen.
go and sign John McGinn. I'm just saying these
Yeah.
type players, this is what we need. We need one of them in there for sure.
There's such a lack of energy in there.
Yeah.
You look at when you look at that, if you want to go to that, change it slightly. When you look at that Aston Villa side the other night against I watched the whole game. Who was they playing?
Against
Newcastle, right?
Oh,
Their
I didn't watch that.
midfield was outstanding. Rodgers, McGinn,
West Ham have won.
Tielemans.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, that's a good win for the kids. But yeah, that's our biggest problem, Jeff. For me, looking at the team, is two central midfield players. As you say, one can go box. Well, they can both go box. One can all go box. I don't really believe in everyone should be getting forward when they get the chance. But if we sort the central midfield out, then I think the rest of it will come together because the defence isn't that bad. Yeah,
It's funny. I've done a hypothetical. I said I prepared a slide. I've done like a kind of hypothetical thing. I don't think we've got time to do all that today. But literally on my graphic, I've got midfielder number 1, midfielder number 2 as what we need to recruit in our window, right? So, like I say, I don't think I've got time to kind of go through all that tonight. But maybe next week or the week after.
If you take the wide players and you play Bowen as a wide player, you've got Bowen. You got Kudus, yeah. You've got Somerville.
Yeah.
You've got Gilherm.
Yeah.
Who needs a chance? You've got 4 wide players there.
Agreed. I agree totally.
So that can do a job.
Although we can't say in my hypothetical window, I have to say Kudus is no longer at the football club. So
we haven't had a player at that club for some time with his talent, to be fair. So
I'm just saying, in my hypothetical model that I've done, Kudus isn't at the club. But if you include him, say he doesn't leave, I agree. There's the 4 wide players.
Yeah, and your problem is your centre of the park. Do you need to go out and spend 6 or 7 players? No, you don't. You need 2 terrific midfield players, and if you're going to spend the money, spend it there. You've got a centre forward. Get a backup centre forward for not so much money, and bring one of the kids in because you can't do it.
I really wish we started talking about this earlier. I would have done it, but yeah, there's too much information.
You can't do it in one window, Jeff. It's not possible. You know, the money's not going to be there. So, and then you've got players leaving, which will obviously open up. I wouldn't be surprised if Thomas and Soufal end up at Everton. There seems to be a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, they both leave, and my hypothetical windows, they both leave as well. So maybe we'll talk about this next week or something. And we'll dedicate a bit more time to it.
But that's my opinion. It's just central midfield. It needs, and then say the back 4 will be stronger because it's Dan doing the job it's supposed to be doing, not covering other people, and then the forwards will be doing their job instead of dropping back in trying to chase that. Kudus, when I watch him, I think, what the fuck is it? He's picking the ball up as like an inside fullback half the time. He's just in front of the fullback and he's trying to turn, he's trying to make something. He was doing that end of the pitch. Yeah. I know he's had a bad season, but he's a wonderful footballer. I mean, he needs to be put in the right positions to do his stuff. I would hate to see Kudus go. Yeah. If he had another bad season like this next year, then you have to say, well, yeah. But if you can make him
I haven't sold him in my model because I think he's a bad player or I'm desperate to get rid of him. I've just done it because I think the club will do it to realise whatever profit that they can. Yeah. That's why I think he goes.
He should be more influential in a game than Bowen is. He's got more about him than Bowen has natural talent, but he's not showing it. He's stronger than Bowen. He's quicker than Bowen. The only thing is his finishing is not at that level. No. But then he's not really in them positions enough time because of the way that we play him.
Absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. And get Absolutely back to the chat. Ian says, pleasantly surprised him when he came in. He now has a few concerns, but we have two massive squad problems: midfield, centre forward, what we were just discussing. We have to give him the tools and then judge him. Can't keep chopping managers. Yeah, that's my sentiment. I think he should absolutely be given opportunity. I'm not going on the narrative of it's not his team, he needs all his players. I'm just saying I think he should be given the opportunity to strengthen in the areas that we need, bring in the players that we need. That constitutes the building his own team, then yeah. But I'm not saying we need to clear everyone out and he has to have all of his signings in to make us a good team, but we definitely need some signings in to improve our team. We're weak in areas, and as we all agree, midfield and centre forward is the areas. And don't think we can keep chopping and changing. Mal said to it, every 10 games, next manager. How are you going to build anything with that?
But he has to. The only problem is, right, and it would be the same whatever manager comes in. Whatever manager comes in, they have to make that right decision in the summer. Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, because we've had it with Loppy. He brought in, everyone said at the start of the season, our best window we've ever had.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the fucking worst window we've ever had. Yeah, because we bought pure shit. Yeah, they haven't performed as a them players.
Some haven't performed. Others have.
Huh? Well,
others have. Some have.
Wan-Bissaka has. Yeah. And then where do you go from there? Because the Rodriguez hasn't.
I think Gilman's done a reasonable job since he's been here.
Who?
Gilman's done all right.
Yeah, he's done all right.
He's done all right. He's having a bit of a. He seemed to. He came in, he did all right. Then he had a dodgy spell. Then he seemed to recover and do. He got put into the back three. Seemed to look a lot better, more comfortable. And then he's going through another little struggle period. He's a bit up and down, isn't he?
You can't really wait to be there as a good season because he hasn't played a full game yet.
Yeah, Tadebo frustrates me in the fact that
I can't say that he's had a
back end of April and he still don't finish games. He's just about getting to finish games. What's going on?
But he is a good footballer. He is a good footballer. Yeah, but
he is a good footballer.
Yeah.
I mean, look, every player comes with issues. Every player. You don't ever get a player come into a club, any club, and there's no problems or no issues. Anyway, very rarely. So, but for me, I think that I think it's probably about 40% of Lopetegui's window has worked. And the other 60% of it hasn't. And out of that 60% that hasn't worked, there have been moments of decent football out of some of the individuals within, if you know what I mean. But I think that Full Crew is one of those players that keep him fit, and he's an Andy Carroll. Keep him fit, he get your goals. Get him the right supply, he get your goals.
But you need your wingers crossing balls.
You do, and for that you need a left-sided left footer and a right-sided right footer, in my opinion.
But then you also need them players as
you don't, do you? If he's gonna get his fullbacks up. Yeah, and by the way, Bowen can cross with his right foot, so he doesn't have to come in on the left-hand side. Yeah. That's one thing that I think Bowen has really improved on, actually, being able to go outside and deliver good balls.
So can Somerville, to be fair. But
right, yeah. So, and then you've got your fullbacks can get up and deliver crosses, or they should be, right? So, it shouldn't be a problem getting the ball into the box for the striker.
No. And Wan-Bissaka's final ball is 1,000% better than Man United fans would have had us believe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I
think he's a bit inconsistent with it, but he delivers a good ball. sometimes.
Yeah, but I've been rarely disappointed with his forward play, because he does like to think forward, and I like that in a fullback,
But he needs to be in their positions. That's the problem.
Yeah,
We're
and
not.
I know I'm a bit of a fanboy, but I think he is a really important player for us, and I think he was a huge miss at the weekend, and
He is
he's a
important.
must keep in the
He is a
window.
must. He is a must keep. Yeah, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that overall, the new signings have been
Yeah,
poor. Yeah,
yeah,
overall. Yeah, I'm not.
yeah.
I did say
Underwhelming, I
say
think, is
apart from that,
probably.
but
Yeah,
they've all had very bad spells. But we're all agreed anyway. One centre forward, two central midfielders.
Yeah.
Yeah. The boys that go out, Sufel, Sushek, because it looks like they're on their way. And
Yeah.
anyone else, their wages come off the book, and then we can get Walker Peters or someone like that off that ilk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're there. But yeah, I agree. I don't really want to see Potter sacked, but I do want to see at the start of the season that we have an identity and we are going to go, especially at home, push forward and go and play some football,
I might be able to put that thing up, actually.
What's that?
Might work.
All right. Jeffers, I've got an early one again, mate, so I'm going to bow out.
Mike.
No worries, mate.
Yeah. Take
Thanks
care.
for joining us, buddy.
In the chat. Good to speak to you again.
Mate.
I'm away for a couple of weeks, Jack. I'm on holiday. So
no worries, mate.
Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
with you.
Yeah. All right, then, buddy. Take care.
I'll keep him company, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, you keep them. They're all fed up listening to me anyway. You'll probably get more people in the chat when I'm off anyway. Yeah.
They'll all be asking where the Milky Bar kid is, won't they? Look.
See you later, guys.
Mate. Take care, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you later, buddy.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, I kicked him out. Right, I'll try and catch up with the chat here. Ian was saying, we're just talking about midfielders. He says, I think Yuri Tillemans would have been a great midfield signing for us. I think we had a chance to get him out of Leicester, playing beautifully at Villa now. And there's another midfielder in the kind of mould that we're talking about. It's the kind of midfielder that we want. Another one we missed out on, Anana, perhaps, who's also at Villa now. Kicking ourselves for that.
And
guys are just saying good night to Nick.
I think also, another player that we could have got that would have given us a little bit more pace and perhaps, I mean, all right, I know he's injured at the moment, but I think we should have gone and got Conor Gallagher.
Sorry, bud, you say that again. I was chuckling at Tony's
I
comment.
know, Tony. Conor Gallagher, we could have got him.
Another one, I agree. I think we missed a trick there as well.
Yeah. And who's the young lad that went to City from someone like Leicester or someone of that ilk? Anyway, City picked up a young lad. What's his bloody name?
Aces thinks, I think he's saying it's guarantees 6 points against Tottenham and Man United. George was in a chat last night, and apparently people were saying they wanted the drugs on. So I'll have some that Aces is on if he thinks they're guaranteed 6 points. It's on United.
Oh, mate, it's great. Well, as we probably, most of us probably already know, Brighton, West Ham under 21s are now celebrating champions of the Premier League Cup. Congratulations.
And whoever you were talking about, Budgie Ian agrees with you there.
All right. Okay.
I can't remember. So many names were thrown out there now.
Yeah.
I suppose we ought to talk about the upcoming game, what our expectations are against Brighton. Have you given it much thought what we might see at the weekend and what sort of team he might select?
In the words of a
Gallagher. Yes, agreed, Ian.
Gallagher,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he would have been, probably like a marquee signing for us.
Is your carry on, Budge? I thought I could hear you, Mike fuzzy. Is it just me?
It could be. I don't know. It could be me.
No,
I don't know.
carry
I was just saying that, I think that Gallagher would have been brilliant for us. I think we missed the trick with him. And,
No,
the sort of players that I would like to see us looking at in the way of midfielders and that. There's a young Dutch lad called, I forget his bloody name now. Plays for Lille. Young Dutch lad plays for Lille. He's a midfielder. He's 21, I think. Really good. He's kind of like a rotation player for him at the moment. He gets regular game time, but not weekly. I can't remember his name. Let me have a look.
We have got a guy coming back. I don't know if he fits the mould. I really don't know very much about him at all. He might be nowhere near ready, but he might burst onto the scene for all I know. That's the Canty fella that's over at Paris FC. He plays that kind of midfield role, I think. But I've no idea what he's like, to be honest with you. He's a young lad. It'd be a big arse just to throw him in there.
From what I can make out, though, Jeff, he might be there, but is he? He's not first, choice.
No, I think he's getting a few minutes here and there. I don't think he's starting.
Yeah. But even so, that's an invaluable experience for the lad.
Yeah. He was at the club before as well, so he should have gone back and fitted in quite nicely, really. But I don't know if they changed ownership or something in the meantime. Phil was saying the under-18s won the cup tonight, and Gallagher said he'd never join another Premier side. So that puts that to bed then, unfortunately. But that type player, that's what we're looking for, isn't it? That type midfielder. Yeah. Anyway, back to the Brighton game.
Yeah,
I fully expect to see 5 at the back against Brighton after the way we finished against Southampton. Do you think he's going to start like that, or do you think he's going to stick with a 4?
Do you know what? I've sort of got past trying to second guess him because it's got like Lopetegui in that respect, like you're never quite sure which puppets he's going to pull out of the box. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, I would like to see him start with a 5, and then if things go well, transfer it to a 4. But I'd like to see him start with a 5. But I want the 2 wing backs or full-backs or whatever you want to bloody call them. I want them getting up front. So I want to see Emerson on the left, and I want to see Wan-Bissaka on the right. And I want to see, even if it's Scholes in the left centre, I'd like to see it. But I definitely want Todibo and Kilman to start, clearly. I'm very concerned about Mavropanos.
You wouldn't play Scholes ahead of Mavropanos in the 3, though, would you?
I would.
Or ahead of Cresswell, or another.
I would play him ahead of Mavropanos, but not Cresswell, no.
Would you? I tell you what, I'm not a big fan of Mavropanos. I think he's a walking liability. But I don't think he's done too bad in his last couple of appearances, in fairness to him. In fact, I was really worried when he came on against Liverpool, but I don't think he put a foot wrong against Liverpool.
No, actually, he didn't actually do a bad job against Liverpool. That I must agree.
I just don't understand. I think, we kind of say that Scholes was a little bit exposed up against Mo Salah, I think if you're asking him to play it like, oh yeah, you've played a few games at left back now, Ollie. Just slot into centre back now, will you? I think it's a big ask of a young lad. I don't
You're
like that
probably
idea.
right, Jeff. You're
Personally.
probably right. I've just, you know, I've grown confidence in him since his appearances, and I just think that there's a place in the team for him, you know, and whether it be left
There
back
is,
or
but
left
not necessarily in
fullback,
the starting 11 every week. And I think that's where I
that's not.
think Potter's managed him really quite well. I quite like the way he's give him starts. But he ain't always finished games, or he hasn't started games, but he's come on and he's got good minutes when he's come on. Not like Ferguson 5 minutes at the end of the game, or Guilherme 5 minutes at the end of the game, what they were getting.
Yeah,
But he's been coming on with half hour or 70 minutes left, 20 minutes left, or whatever on the 70-minute mark. So he's been getting meaningful minutes. So I really like the way he's managed Skulls. So I don't mind if he doesn't start Skulls. I kind of agree with you. I think Emerson offers a bit more going forwards
he does,
than
and
Skulls does
you
at the
know,
moment.
clearly, you know,
But I don't mind
Paqueta
him
will
coming
be
on and
there.
getting 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Let Emerson start. I'm on
yeah.
board with that. Don't let me influence your
Clearly,
selection, though, bud.
you know, Paqueta would be in the starting lineup. You would think. So, you know, that with the fact that Caduce would probably play out on the left, Paqueta would probably be central, more sort of, I suppose, I don't know, central midfield with perhaps Alvarez or Socek or someone.
Well, the thing with, I mean, Alvarez would be my preferred option in there every
Of
time.
course,
But the stories that are coming out that I've heard today, and one thing another, rumours perpetuating themselves. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if Alvarez plays or is part of the squad on Saturday. That's for me. He slots in there every time. But um, yeah,
he's
there
the
seems to
most
be a bit
reliable
quiet around that, whether he
central
can leave the
midfielder we've
club,
got.
whether he's had a fallout, whether he's
Yeah,
injured or not. So yeah, it's yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So that means that it's likely, just as likely, that we're going to see what Ward Prowse, Paqueta, Soler in a free there again.
yeah. Oh, we have kind of digressed a bit actually because you were speaking about the Brighton game coming up. You asked me about the Brighton game, and
I
we've
thought we were
digressed.
talking about the team for the Brighton game.
Oh, we kind of are, yeah. We kind of are. Sorry, yeah, we are. No, it's just that Make West Ham Great Again's put up there a valid comment about Brighton not having a win in 5. It's a couple below that one.
Is it below that? I'm behind on
Yeah.
the chat. Sorry, guys, in the chat.
Yeah, no win in 5. West Ham to oblige, and he hit the nail on the head. How we all feel about that, you know.
They've also got some quite serious problems. They've got a really long injury list, Brighton, and their centre half got stretchered off in the last game with a head injury. So I'm pretty sure he's not going to be available. And
Yeah,
João Pedro got sent off. So I
yeah.
don't think he's going to be available either. So they've definitely got some holes in their team.
What about Mitoma? Is he?
Matoma
or-
came on in the last game. I imagine he may. João Pedro played sort of wide left in their last game on
Yeah,
the graphic, so I imagine Matoma might slot into that place. But that's not
yeah.
really good news for us because he's a nuisance, isn't he?
I know he's his preferred position, and he's one of the players out of the entire Premier League that I dread us coming up against. I dread it. You know, I mean, like, you know, Chris Wood, yeah, I mean, all right, there's always a way around Chris Wood. We haven't found it yet, but there is a way. You know, Callum Wilson, we haven't quite, well, we found that once. We've stopped him from scoring once. But, like, Matoma, he's he's like trying to catch a snake in long grass, mate. He really is. He's so wriggly and good. I
agree.
fear for us every time he plays against us.
And Welbeck scored again at the weekend.
Yeah, another player to watch.
Yeah. But getting back to our team, so if you've got a back five, as you said, and then your midfield threes, so are you doing what Potter does? Have you got Kudus and Bowen up as a two, like Potter likes to do? Or you're changing that?
No.
Okay, cool.
I'm
So what would you
changing
do there?
completely. So I'm having 3 at the back with the wing backs, yeah? So, and then I'm going to have 1 in the middle, which would be Alvarez for me. Okay. And then in front of him, going to have 3. So it would be Kudus on the left, Bowen on the right, Fulkrug in the middle. That way, you would have supply to Fulkrug. You would have Fulkrug switching positions with either of those players. You know, like when it comes to, you know, passing around the box and stuff, and Fulkrug holding play up, you know, you'll find him supplying as well. I just think that we should be playing with a front 3. I really do.
Okay, so your midfield then is Alvarez.
Well, sorry. Yeah. So there's 5 at the back, if you want to put it that way. 2 in the middle. So that would be, Soucek and Alvarez.
Soucek and Alvarez.
Yeah, right now it would be.
Okay, and then the wing backs go wide of them, and then you have
and then Bowen,
Kudus, Bowen, and
Fulkrug up front. 5-2-3. That's how it would look on paper, or a 3-4-3, perhaps.
Yeah.
But that's and I think for Brighton, that's the way to go. You've got to have them wing backs bombing up and down, but you've also got to have them defending. Emerson and Wan-Bissaka both defend really well.
Yeah,
and so does Ollie's goal. But
you've got quite a lot of ground for Soucek and Alvarez to cover there in the middle of the park. I think I don't.
Well, yeah. I mean,
where's the creativity? Where's the creativity come from?
Who else would? Well, I'm thinking more of stability more than creativity in that midfield bit. The creativity comes from the wing backs bombing forward and the 3 front players. You know that, and you know, and Paqueta don't even get a shout for me in that lineup.
He's played very well last few games, I thought, as well.
Well, yeah, he kind of has, but he like. Who was it? Was it you that mentioned it, or someone mentioned it in the chat? Maybe that he hasn't had an assist this season.
Yeah, Mick said it earlier. Yeah,
Mick. Yeah, he hasn't had an assist this season. You know.
Yeah, I just think we have. I think we have to. I just think our midfield is.
Our midfield's got a bit of bully.
Not physical. I just think we have to have like 3 in there. Well, I would love to play with 2 in there, but I just don't see a 2 that can do the job.
Perhaps
for me.
Not, mate. Maybe even swapping out Soucek for Paqueta. That would give you a little bit more. I mean, he can cover a bit more ground than Soucek can.
He can, but then when Paqueta's laying on the floor, Alvarez is fucking on his own.
True. Yeah.
Andy Irvine. I'd be more positive. It's not sounding, but I just think we have to have 3. I can't see past it, and then. I prefer the 4 at the back, but I think Potter's going to go with 5. But I prefer 4 at the back because I just think it's easier to get like an actual striker on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So I would prefer he play. I wouldn't even care if he played 4-5-1, just so floods that midfield a bit, keeps Bowen and could do to keep their width, but play sort of a little bit deeper. It's not ideal, but I just think that in that way, that could change to a 4-3-3 quite quickly if you're attacking.
Yeah.
But
True.
anyway, you kind of highlighted the. We're all a bit undecided about what team Potter will be put out. I say I think I'd quite like to see some kind of 4-5-1 formation. Make sure Fulkrug's into. I don't know if we can get 90 minutes out of him, but we'll have to get what we can get out of him. And the only option to come on will be either to stick Bowen up front or Danny Ings, because Ferguson's not available even if he doesn't need a piss.
Yeah, true. Yeah. He's can't play against his parent club.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, Granny Dings, right? I don't think he's really much of an option, is he?
It's very depressing when you think about that. That's your options, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't even think it's Ings' fault, to be really. I don't want to be.
I'd rather
Like,
see
not picking on
Mavropanos
him.
up front. I'd rather see
Yeah.
Mavropanos as a striker than Danny Ings. I really would.
Yeah.
I don't rate Mavropanos. But
Asa
anyway,
says Seagulls will have enough for Potter. And Phil says Belieber, the Brighton holding midfielder, is the kind of monster we are missing in the middle.
Yeah.
Ian wants to see Guilherme get decent game time v Brighton, particularly if some of the regulars are definitely off in the summer. Yeah, I mean, it's been nice to see a little bit more of Guilherme over the last few weeks as well. I'd definitely like to see him much in the Skulls mode, get a bit more meaningful minutes rather than 5 or 10 minutes here and there. It'd be nice to see him get 20 minutes or half hour and give him a chance to actually show something in the game. Although he's had in fairness, for the limited minutes he's had a couple of real good opportunities to score and kind of fluffed his lines on both occasions a little bit. But
you know, he has also been quite
glimpses.
helpful with the distribution of the ball. He's been quite good at that. You know, but he carries the ball forward and passes it on. He's been pretty, good with that. It's just his final ball, as you said, scoring. He hasn't been able to put that together yet. Really, I think everything else he's done.
Not many of our side, because we talked about Paqueta. Not many of our sides have got assists. I suppose that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And he says, Phil says, Guilherme has a last few up top with his pace. I tell you what, there was a game, I think it was against Villa. We're absolutely crying out for that.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is the time. Bring him on and let him just stretch. We're dying for a little bit of pace up there. And he brought Danny Ings on. But he has started using Guilherme a little bit more recently. It's good to see. He's touched on their threats. Welbeck, obviously. They've got loads of injuries. Brighton. I did do a graphic for that as well, but we've been on for such a long time now. I think it's a bit late in, so maybe we should probably just get to our predictions. What we think the result might be this weekend before we say our good nights and any last thoughts we might have. I don't know if anyone in the chat wants to get their predictions in. Far away if you want to now, guys.
Yeah.
Your thoughts,
I'm
Budge?
not going to be under any delusions of grandeur I'm not going to see a wounded animal. Yeah, I don't see a wounded animal in Brighton. What I see is a bogey team for us, Jeff. We've had one result in 17 games against them. One win, in 17 games against them. And, I think that's 18 now. And I don't see that changing this weekend. I hope I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. But best I can see is a scrappy 0-0 or a scrappy 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as you. I'm kind of going to say a 1-1. despite their poor run of form, I think they've only failed to score in one of their last 5 or 6 games.
Mhm.
They lost to Brentford the weekend, but still scored twice away from home.
Yeah.
Our creativity is a problem. I'm worried if we start with a 5 at the back, we open them up. Maybe we try and catch them on the counter like we scored against Southampton at the weekend. Maybe that's the way that we can get
But
to
that's been
Brighton.
our
It's kind of
mantra for a while, hasn't it, Jeff?
how we beat them when we beat them well under Moyes.
Yeah.
But yeah, perhaps a 1-1. I'll go with some of the chats. Put some predictions in. Phil says 2-1 to Brighton. Toa also thinks 1-1. Ian says sorry, 1-0 to Brighton. So not huge optimism out there from any of us really in a positive result. But I suppose after the performance against Southampton at the weekend, it's not really one that's going to fill you with confidence, is it?
No, it's not inspiring, Jeff, is it?
It's
To be
not.
fair.
The thing we can take perhaps a bit of solace from is, generally speaking, our away performances under Potter have been better, much better than our home performances.
Yeah.
Maybe the guys can go there, turn it on for the away fans, which I'm sure will turn out in their numbers as always,
Yeah.
and give them something to shout about. Let's hope so.
I mean, the ground ain't that far away from me, you know. And if I had an opportunity to go, I'd still go because
It's not that far away from me
too-
either, funnily enough, Budge.
I know, yeah, no, it's not, is it?
Slightly different
Halfway,
direction, but yeah.
yeah. But but the thing is, there's nothing there to inspire us at the moment. I mean,
No.
like we're feeding off scraps, Jeff. You know,
Yeah, we are.
half
Definitely.
an hour here, 45 minutes there.
Yeah, that is the thing.
A decent performance from one man or from two players. You know,
Yeah.
we're feeding off scraps this season, mate. and
Absolutely agree.
it's left us all wanting more. It's left us all demanding better, and like we've had generally. I mean, like when I first started Green Street Elites, and I'm sure for you when you started Boleyn Lounge, it was because there was a bit of enjoyment in the game and that around it and everything around it. It's become a bit more of a chore these days to be positive because there's nothing inspiring us. There's nothing to be positive about.
No. Well, before we go and you give everyone the heads up of what else you've got on for the rest of the week, Badge, I just better take this opportunity to just apologise to Toha because I did say I was going to try and inject some optimism. I did try to be a little bit optimistic some point during the show, but we just seem to diving down that there's not a lot to be
we did have
about,
a bit
I guess.
of like positivity with the under 18s result and stuff.
Yeah, there's the positive. There's a massive positive. There you go. You've recovered it
They
there,
just
Budgie.
won the under 18s FA Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or no, sorry, Premier League Cup. Sorry.
Yeah.
And they beat Reading in the final, which historically Reading have been a bit of a team for us to play. So I'm talking about in the junior leagues, as it were. But it's all been good. So we've got a little bit of positive news there, and I was saying too much whinging to be fair.
Not too much. He says not too much.
Oh, not too much.
Yeah, not too much.
Yeah, there.
So do you want to just shout out your channel and what you've got on for the rest of the week before we wrap it up, Budge? And
all right. Well, tomorrow evening, as most of you that know me will already know, Old School Hammers on West Ham Network at 10 p.m. UK time. And then on Thursday, the West Ham review with Tony on Hammers Football TV. Had to get that right because he's had a rebrand. And those of you that knew him as early
loving
doors
his new logo, by the way.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those of you that knew him as Early Doors Football TV, it is now Hammers Football TV. So we're going to be doing the West Ham review on that. And you never know, I might do an impromptu little stream on Green Street Elites at some point soon.
Cool. Excellent. Well, unless you've got anything else you'd like to add, Budge, I'm just going to
Thank
say...
you very much for inviting me on again, Jeff.
No problem. I was
Appreciate
just about to thank you for coming on and supporting me as you do always. And
Mate, yeah.
thanks to all you guys in the chat, joining in the chat and giving us a giggle like you always do, and your opinions. Be absolutely lost without your contribution. So thanks for tuning in. And if you're watching it back and you don't get to watch this live, thanks to you guys as well for tuning in and supporting us every week. And on that note, I'll say good night, and we'll see you all next week.
See you next week, guys.
Good night, guys. Go on your eyes.